it is almost a sense of double taxation, and those in housing authorities are being treated unfairly.
And where would the flip side of that revenue come from?
You know, it's not a question of where's the flip side, it's why are we charging? And those dollars could go into the housing authority, could stay with the housing authority, could stay in making sure to make those community centers stay open. Make sure that, you know, we're not looking at a deteriorating situation which continues to deteriorate. We'd be looking at a situation at least that would help to be stabilized, because it's important to do that. We have tens of thousands of individuals in the housing authority developments, as well as an incredible waiting list. Affordable housing and public housing is probably one of the more precious things that we have in the city, and we need to maximize it. So it's, you know, in the past when you say no to something, someone says, well, how do you make up the revenue these days? I've always come out and said, here's where the revenue comes from. Identified those, you know, over the last year or so, year and a half, as we've been in tough times, those making $500,000 a year or more who would pay about 0.65%, so less than 1% of their income in extra taxes. For those making $1 million a year or more, 1%.
Okay.
And I don't think that's unfair, and particularly let it sunset as things start to get better.
So city taxes for those high net worth individuals are going to increase.
And all that would generate about $1 billion a year. So I think that's fair.
Now let's flip over to education a little bit, because that also talks in terms of finance and relates, because New York taxpayers, according to something you cited, have spent in excess of $720 million on overpaying contractors that they didn't need to spend money on. And in terms of no bid contracts that were awarded for those individuals that had no track record. And for these reasons and more, you're saying Joe Klein should be ousted.
We need to get an education chancellor in there right now for education reasons, but also, for, you know, we look at an institution like the Department of Education, where the use of outside no-bid contracts has grown dramatically in the last few years. There's a lack of fiscal accountability and transparency in the Department of Education. I'm not even sure they know where all their money is, because of the lack of transparency. It almost looks as if they're hiding money intentionally.
Do you feel they're manipulating their test scores in terms of trying to achieve those standardized test scores?
I think there are a number of things that are going on, including the test on the state level being dumbed down, and you know, when you're starting to look at test scores and what's passing on Regents exam these days, really is to start to break down the most that you can get on a couple of them. People were showing me it's at 80. To pass, you have to get a 39. That's abysmal.
Right.
And that doesn't talk to academic achievement. You know, do I think that test scores are being played around with? I think that our children are being taught to take standardized tests, and just the New York State test. And in any other measure of achievement, when it comes to standardized testing, they're not doing as well. Federal test called the NAEP. Given every 2 years, our students have been flat for the last 4 years. SAT scores, you saw again in the last 2 weeks, were down for about the 4th year in a row. New York City students. They can continue to talk about, Mike Bloomberg can continue to talk about how well things are doing. I don't think anybody's buying it.
So under Bill Thompson administration, are we going to see an increase in charter schools even? Because it seems like the educational system is not necessarily running budget neutral right now.
No, you would continue to see charter schools and growth in charter schools, but I would also let people understand that charter schools aren't everything.
Right.
That right now you probably have 30,000 children in charter schools. You still have another 1 million children in the other public school system. It would be about comprehension and content. It would be about so many things that need to be done to improve education, not just teaching children to take tests.
So in terms of, let's talk national policy now, and I'll be remiss not to at least ask a question about healthcare reform. We've got public option, we've got single payer, which is off the table from the beginning, but I still would like to know your thoughts on if you were in favor of that, a cooperative or none of the above. What would be your preference in terms of healthcare that you would like to see?
Well, I think there are a lot of people who would like to see a public option within this, and when you look at the members of the House, I mean, the balancing act between the House and the Senate these days is interesting. You're seeing Democrats in the House side saying, don't forget the public option. And on the other side, you're seeing some of the members of the Senate going, wait, we don't know, we want to see this.
Right.
I think that what we need to do, I think where you're seeing the president start to go, let's get something done. And I think that's the most important thing. Whatever we call it, there are those who have health insurance right now, and so many who don't. Let's start to make sure that those who don't get health insurance, and we can start to scale things up as we move along. I think that right now there's a huge concern about cost, about whether this is going to fall on the middle class. The president has already committed that that will not happen. We just need to move something forward soon, because what is starting to happen is this is just getting tied up and tied down and slowed down. And if we don't move forward and start to give other people access to real health care in this country, it is a mistake. So I don't want to fall into the labels as much as we need to move. It needs to move forward and move forward as soon as Congress comes back quickly. Because if not, all the naysayers, all those on the Republican side, all of those in the industry and the pharmaceutical and others who are trying to prevent this are going to be able to scare the American people.
Do you feel it's a cop-out if we pass legislation without a public option?
I would like to see a public option, but I think this is one of those you'd like to move forward and see things progress and include as many people as possible. And if you have to come back to Ann and be able to say, see, the world didn't come to an end. Right. Let's move. I think that's important.
All right, so now I guess I'd like to do a little bit of rapid fire, and 3 major pieces here: development, housing, and education. If you can kind of, in the 4 pieces: the development, housing, education, the economy. If you can kind of we'll start with development. If you kind of give me a broad overall look in terms of concrete plans that you would like to see, and start off with development in maybe 30 seconds or less.
Believe in development. Believe that New York City has to continue to grow. I think there are a couple of principles that need to go into this. I would talk about smart growth and fair growth, growth that includes communities in the developments that are going to go on into the neighborhoods. I think they've been excluded. We need to make sure we involve them in the future. And also, as New York City provides tax breaks to businesses to grow in development, we have to be concerned about the type of jobs and the level of jobs that are being created. We just can't say, go off on your own. We need to tie tax breaks into long-term good-paying jobs, because I think right now it is a question of making sure that people can stay in New York City and grow and prosper here.
Are you an advocate of clauses like the community benefits agreement that has an increase in minority development within specific jobs?
I've supported community benefits agreements going back for years. I think that one thing New York City has to do is, instead of leaving it up to each development and each individual development and perhaps the borough president and individual council people, we need to create a blueprint. It says this is what is expected based on perhaps size of project, but that's what's expected.
In terms of now, in order to meet these numbers within the community benefits agreement, there have been a lot of problems with the lack of minority contractors who have bonding capacity, the size of being able to take on these jobs. So a lot of those numbers are falling short because we don't have a lot of minority businesses who can meet those criteria to actually be a business to get those size contracts.
Some of it is, but some of it also is New York City hasn't created the focus. And they've done a terrible job at bringing in and helping minority businesses to grow. So, something, if it's a question of chopping contracts up into smaller sizes so you can have and create more opportunity, then that's what you do. That's not happening right now. So when you look at New York City, there is no focus in involving and growing minority business. There is no focus in the city government right now, and it's reflective in the numbers. There's a goals-oriented program that exists in the city of New York. It hasn't even come close. So it's a question of what type of focus you create, how you go about it, and then moving forward to make sure it happens.
Okay. Education. 30 seconds or less in terms of what your goals are.
Start to align things a lot better, more career and technical education, smaller classes and earlier grades, more focus on literacy and other areas. Art, music education needs to be part of the school system, not just standardized testing. We need to let teachers teach again.
Okay. The economy, top 3 things that you would see improved under a Bill Thompson administration with the New York City economy.
Focus on small business all across the city of New York and trying to create greater access to capital, number 1. Number 2, helping those who are self-employed and helping them grow. And then being creative about bringing new businesses and new economies into the city of New York. Not just biotech, as everybody will say, not just green collar jobs. We looked at a tax credit that exists for film and TV, on a state and city level. Looking at things like that, that created jobs. When it dried up, the jobs left. New York City could be the film capital of the world if we created the focus and the vision that went along with it.
And lastly, housing.
If we don't understand that there is probably the greatest need in the city of New York, probably next to jobs, is housing, then we'll continue to fool ourselves. I think we need to understand that we need to create housing across a spectrum, low, moderate, middle income housing. We need to look at doing something bold, like a 21st century Mitchell-Lama program, and really start to create tens of thousands of new units across the city of New York, as well as we need to stop all the tax breaks for luxury housing. I mean, there's a glut of that. Right now, we should be doing tax breaks for middle income housing and looking, as I said, low, moderate, middle income housing. That's where the focus needs to be.
Okay, well, Mr. Thompson, I thank you for your time here today.
Good talking to you. Good talking.
It was definitely a great conversation.
Thank you.